Hi everyone, welcome to the new episode of the Prime View series of interviews with top business and technology experts. In this interview, I got the pleasure to sit and talk with Jeremy Pollock, who is Vice President of Product and Developer Platform at Lightbend. The key topic of our discussion was serverless, Akka serverless as an important offering of Lightbend. We all know that app development keeps evolving, and it seems there's no end to that evolution. Serverless architecture, though, has refined the ways of app development as the fastest growing cloud service model right now. Many companies like cloud giants like Microsoft and Amazon are pushing for serverless, and there are several reasons for that. The first one, it lowers the cost of app development. Second, it reduces the operational complexity. And the third one, it increases DevOps efficiencies. In this interview, we talked about the great potential and benefits for large organizations leveraging the technology. We also talked about some of the challenges for product managers leading their teams in the post-transition and integration periods. It's a great interview with lots of valuable insights, and I hope you will enjoy it just as much as I did. So if you do, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the PrimeView YouTube channel. So Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to the PrimeView.
Well, Dana, thank you very much for having me. Really excited to be here today and to be able to share some of my experiences on PrimeView.
Excellent, great. We are really happy to have you here with us. And you know, Jeremy, you have a terrific experience of working in tech, right, for almost 3 decades. You've been part of the industry, and you've actually pioneered and worked on some of that key technology that have become mainstream now. Maybe you could share with our listeners your career trajectory and the steps in your career that have led you to your current position.
Sure, and I can't believe that I had someone say 3 decades in the context of my working with. I now feel very, very old, but thank you. I do appreciate it. If it seems like yesterday when I started my journey, especially in product management. And you know, when I look at my long career doing product management over well over 20 years now, I really break it up into 2 buckets. It's really my pre-mastery days, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment, and then the time spent focused on developer platforms. When I though look at my entire product management career, I really see a common thread. It's the notion of building platform products that help people build things. And I don't mean that in an altruistic sort of way, although I do consider myself a rather nice person, but simply that my career has been rooted in trying to understand what people, companies, individuals are trying to build themselves, what problems they're trying to solve via tooling, applications, APIs, and infrastructure, and then be a part of building solutions for them and with them. And when I talk about that mastery moment, Mastery is an early API management pioneer. They really broke them into the market and created what we now know as products like Google's Apogee and open source products like Kong and the great MuleSoft product from Salesforce. But Mastery was the beginning of it all, and that point of inflection was going from building products and platforms that had very targeted business purposes. Prior to Mastery, it was all about e-commerce. It was about content management. It was about personalization for different scenarios. But with Mastery and the 10 plus years past that, the problem space has been more broad and horizontal in nature, delivering capabilities for developers to make them more productive, get them going more quickly, do things faster, cheaper, better, through general purpose building blocks. And whether it was scaling and securing APIs through a product like Mastery, to integrating high-speed data messaging into applications like I did at PubNub, and then finally here at Lightbend, helping people build serverless APIs and microservices in a very quick way. That whole kind of arc of developer enablement and developer productivity has really been at the heart of what I've been doing the last decade plus.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. And you mentioned Mastery, right? And so throughout your career, you have experienced several acquisitions. And I was wondering how this acquisition process affects the work of a product manager leader. So maybe you could share some of your insights and lessons that you have learned along the way.
Yeah, great question. And, it's been, since May 2013 was when Intel acquired Mastery. And looking back on that time, lots of lessons learned for sure. Most important for me, it's getting the alignment around vision and strategy. And hindsight is 2020 without a doubt, but having a lack of alignment of where we're going as a product and more generally, what problems we're trying to solve, how do we approach those problems and solving them, really without that clear direction, really hampered a lot of our efforts at Mastery. Back in 2013, we were right in the right position in the market. Now it's dominated by companies like Salesforce's MuleSoft and Kong and the like, but we had lots of great momentum with Mastery, with customers like Starbucks, ESPN, Netflix, among many others. And this isn't a place blame at all. It's just, I wish going through a multi-year kind of period post-acquisition, constantly changing priorities, constantly changing focus, lack of clear direction, ultimately really degrades motivation across the board for teams. And I really wish we had sat down and been more vocal in getting alignment around strategy, how Mastery fit into the big picture. That gives us clear goals, clear purpose. And if you don't have that, it's really difficult to define product strategy, motivate teams, and continue to win the market.
Yeah, I would imagine that. Yeah, so acquisition process puts a lot of pressure on people, right? So, and
Yeah.
also on your LinkedIn profile, I could see that when you were describing that period, that you mentioned that unfortunately lots of key talent was lost.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that was the second big lesson I learned was continuing that theme of alignment is what's the planned investment, like new investment. And that's not to mean open up a blank check and just give us all the money in the world, post acquisition. I understand that, in the business world, you have to have your business model work and make the money at the end of the day. But if you're being tasked to grow revenue, to continue to be competitive in a market, really getting clarity on planned new investment and to push back rather aggressively when the numbers aren't making sense, when it's not matching up with what you've been putting together as a business plan post or prior to the acquisition. Are we losing people? Can we hire to recoup those losses? Can we expand to additional locations and additional markets? I know it's easy to say, but when, in my experience, again, specific to Mastery, it was very nebulous. And we broke up teams, scattered teams, tried to bring them back together, retaining people with very large packages, only to have them drift because they've lost the connection to the purpose and the vision. And certainly that's an important part of it, but execution is just as critical. And so in investment, understanding what you can spend, what you can invest in, really helps with that planning process. And without good planning, it's hard to execute. And then I think the third one around that, once you've got, if you have a strategic alignment, if you've got the planning in place, it comes down to communication. And, if I look back at my time during the post-acquisition of Mastery with Intel and TIBCO, it's when you think you're communicating enough, double your efforts. You can never communicate enough with your teams, with your customers, with your stakeholders. I consider myself to be a fairly good communicator, but it's easy to not do enough of it. And I think that's one of the things when I look back at all my acquisition time, it's recognizing that I could have done better. I could have done more communication, more listening, because you can never do enough when it comes to post-acquisition life in a tech company.
Yeah, those are very important lessons, right? And I believe many companies would see acquisition as opportunity for growth, right? And something very important that is happening, but they might not understand the risks of losing the team or demotivation, right, that they might have because of the not clear future or lack of understanding the future that is right within the larger organization.
Yeah, it really is sad when you see people that you worked with that were really motivated and just really got into the problem that you're trying to solve. And then post acquisition, you have a celebration. Hopefully it's a lucrative acquisition and people are having fun there. But even with all the money in the world, if you lose sight of where you're heading and that vision and the problem that you're trying to solve, people just lose motivation. And it's really sad to see, to be interacting with team members that are just kind of just coming to work, ticking the box, if you will, punching the key card or whatever, and not fully engage in a motivated way. And it's really something that I would be sensitive to, in any future acquisition, to make sure that we really nail that so people could get up each and every day and still love what they're doing.
Yeah, I believe this is a very important question. And does it mean that you would recommend to any founder considering being acquired to have this clear communication plan for all the managers on all levels of the corporate hierarchy as part of the acquisition, post acquisition, and also integration strategy to help bring people along that challenging process and make sure that people stay integrated?
Over the last, say, 5 or 6 years, I've been in conversations where people have, expressed interest in acquiring a company, and at first glance, it's like, awesome, exit, we're gonna be rich, and then you dig deeper and ask the right questions of, well, what are your plans for us? What is your vision for where you want to take the product, our customers, the market, the employees? And if they can't answer those questions, that's a red flag. And if they're answering a question that doesn't match up with where you're trying to go and doesn't match up with your core values, then no matter how much money is in play, it's probably not enough to overcome that post-acquisition mess that comes with, again, the lack of alignment and a lack of motivation from your teams.
So what type of individuals you're looking to bring to your organization in order to foster that innovation culture?
I think it goes back to my career progression and my focus on developers and their pains and opportunities that we can open up through platform infrastructure and capabilities and APIs and services. And for me, whenever I look at hiring folks, whether on my team or into the company, to a certain extent, it's all about building, builders. And with people that are builders that want to build things, as part of that comes with the spirit of wanting to tackle problems in new and interesting ways. They have this ceaseless desire, this never-ending desire to solve really hard problems, and that's what I'm always looking for. It's like, how can we as a platform company ever build products for developers if we can't get ourselves into the same mindset? And that mindset again is look for people that want to develop creatively, deliver valuable solutions to hard problems. I'm not looking, for example, for product managers on my team to write code. Cool that you might do in your free time, but certainly to get in tune with our users, the developer problem, that developer mindset. And for people that have that, for me, I've seen this great innovation happen because they just bring this different perspective into the problem space. Brings different energy into the problem space and allows you to think very creatively when tackling big problems.
Yeah, how hard is it is to find these people, right? So the people with the right mindset.
Yeah, very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when it comes to hiring product managers for this sort of technical platform. If I had $1 for every PM who I've interviewed, to whom I've asked a question, are you a technical PM? And they've said, yes, I'm a technical product manager, and they've never written a line of code. Well, again, I'm not expecting anyone to write code all the time, but it's an easier thing to say, and it's harder to do. And I think people that have strong empathy are ones that have a good building block. Good communication skills, good listening skills, another good building block. So yes, it's hard to find, and that makes it, poses the task to someone like myself to dig deeper beyond the superficial experiences, to look for those key building blocks of empathy, communication, listening, sense of ownership, if you will. They want to lead through influence. Those are some of the key building blocks that I look for, recognizing that they may have some technical training on the job, and recognizing that it's a hard shoe to fill, if you will, respective of the technical innovators out there for these sorts of developer platforms.
Got this. Yeah, totally can understand you. Maybe you could also, so you have recently joined Lightbend, right? Maybe you could tell us about your current company. Give us a short overview of the company and the product you offer called Akka Platform, right? Akka Serverless.
Yeah, sure. Most people haven't heard of Lightbend. Most of us have touched, though, capabilities that have been powered by our open source project called Akka. If you buy a coffee at Starbucks, Akka is playing a big role in the transaction that's concluded to actually get you your coffee. If you're tuning into Disney Plus, things like your streaming profile and personalization recommendations being generated by Akka. If you're a cricket fan and you're following big events over in India, perhaps like IPL, there are parts of the social experience that are powered by Akka. And so you may not have heard of Akka, you may not have heard of Lightbend, but I bet you've interacted with capabilities powered by that technology. We've been a company around for 10 years. It's been a great foundation for large companies like Starbucks, Disney Plus, Capital One, among many others, to build massively scalable, high-performing applications. But in the past, it's taken fairly sophisticated developers to get to that point. With the introduction of a new product called Akka Serverless, we're taking a lot of the inherent complexity and building business-critical distributed applications that can scale up and scale down and deliver near instantaneous performance, and getting rid of all the complexity and just putting in front of the developer an experience that allows them to focus only on their business logic, their business needs. And other serverless technologies out there do something along those same lines. Amazon's AWS's Lambda is a great example of this. We're not focused on that set of use cases. We're really focused on modern enterprise development, looking to build APIs, looking to build sophisticated microservices, but doing that without having to worry about the servers, without having to worry about databases, message brokers, caching infrastructure. Ultimately, Akka Serverless and Lightbend right now are really about helping development teams accelerate roadmaps through this serverless simplified offering.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that Akka Serverless is plays an important part of Lightbend's offering, and it's got great momentum with companies that you have mentioned, Capital One, Starbucks, ESPN, Disney Plus, and many more that are leveraging the technology. So I was curious to hear your opinion about the serverless, right? I know many companies, including cloud giants like Microsoft and Amazon, are pushing for serverless architecture, right? Does it mean that this technology has become a mainstream? And if so, does it eliminate the need for some underlying infrastructure like servers, memory, and storage?
With any buzz, you inevitably have pushback in different areas. I've seen some recent articles touting the decline of serverless, but I think those articles have not been expansive enough in their definition of what serverless is now. We've all grown up, if you will, with serverless as defined by functions as a service, a la AWS Lambda, a la Azure Functions. But now you have products like, serverless databases like Yugabyte and PlanetScale and FaunaDB, and serverless messaging technology like Confluence Kafka serverless offering. They've all entered into the market, enabling development teams to focus, again, simply on their business need, the business needs that they're trying to meet, as opposed to all the ancillary but important and often complicated infrastructure. And what's even more telling for me as a pushback to that notion of the decline of serverless and an argument for that serverless, in fact, is becoming mainstream, is that you see the inclusion of compute functions as a service, other serverless functionality into mainstream products, if you will, like Twilio, Cloudflare, Gatsby.js, Vercel, among many others. And so it's hard to debate for me as to why you would not want to do serverless. You don't have to worry about underlying infrastructure. If you've ever built something and deployed it, AKA most every developer out there in the world, then you intimately know the value of serverless. And certainly if you work with products like AWS and like Azure, among others like PlanetScale, Twilio, Cloudflare, you really can see where the market is going, respective of delivering technology to meet this promise of not having to worry about infrastructure and just focusing on your business logic.
Yeah, Jeremy, that's a great answer. And one of my last questions is about the case studies. I've actually looked up on your website and I've noticed several case studies where you tell why big enterprises are choosing Akka Platform for its data streaming capabilities. So maybe you could share with our audience some of the case studies where you would give us better understanding of Akka Serverless and how it helps companies provide personalized experience to their clients, to their customers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and for us, data streaming is certainly one of the use cases of the Akka platform and Akka serverless as well. There are other data streaming technologies out there. Akka platform and Akka isn't Kafka, it's not Pulsar. Those are two great data streaming platforms as well. But for us, it becomes around how a customer or a use case is viewing their data and how they want to take action. So people often talk about data at rest, i.e. put it into a database, or data in motion, aka send it through a message bus like a Kafka, and both important for sure. We like to think as well as data in action. And a good example of this is Capital One. They use their auto lending process. It's powered by Akka, by the streaming capability. And for them, and I just recently went through a new car purchase process, and it was fairly painless. And part of it was the lending process. It's, can I get a loan or not? Before Akka and before this whole notion of really viewing data streaming as a way to take action as quickly as possible, the auto lending process was taking days. So you go to the dealership, you want to buy a car, you enter in your information, and then a week later we come back with a response, thumbs up, thumbs down. And now it's taking, minutes, if not seconds, all the while, delivering more capabilities. So they're getting your data to flow into the application. They're running in parallel all these machine learning algorithms to ultimately spit out an answer. And the way they achieve that, of course, is with Akka and this notion of data in action. And so as the data streams through the system, they're not worrying about putting it into some backend system, although inevitably the data does find its way into a backend system. But they're with Akka streaming capabilities, we're in essence keeping the data and the logic tied together. And that allows us to make decisions very, very quickly. We call it co-location of state and compute. But ultimately it's, once you have the data, make a decision. You may not have a perfect data set, so you're not waiting for everything to be synchronized with some backend database or some inside the firewall type of messaging system. It's all about taking action right then and there. And that in the moment personalization, in the moment decision making that we see at the likes of Capital One are the same notions that people like Disney Plus, Starbucks, Norwegian Cruise Lines is another good example of that, where on the ship personalization of offers, a Mai Tai with your lunch, depending on what you have in your cart. That sort of in the moment personalization, that data in action philosophy is really important to those use cases and those customers that leverage the Akka platform and Akka serverless to deliver on that business need.
thank you so much, Jeremy, for sharing that. It's
You're welcome.
yeah, it's a great note to end on. So it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure was all mine. Thanks.